The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome to this short, sharp session on building trust in teams. Welcome wherever you are, and thank you for giving up half an hour of your time. If you've got any questions about the topic, I'm more than happy to accept them during the 30 minutes we're together. So if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see a little question box there, and if you open that up, you can type in your question, and I will get that straight away. No one else gets to see it, and I'll respond to it immediately. So at any stage you want to ask a question, please do so. I encourage you to. I'll also send you a copy of the slides and the recording at the end of the presentation sometime this afternoon. So you can expect that in your inbox sometime this afternoon. So thank you. All right, so I obviously want to talk a little bit about the book that's going to be published later this year that you can see on your screen, and called Winning Teams. And I want to talk a little bit about that and pretty much talk about trust today, which is the key topic I want to look at. So if we look at the concept of what I'm going to cover in the next short while, is I want to look at the elements of trust. What are they? So if you're trying to build up trust in a team, what are they? These are pretty generic in the sense that you could build them. These are important in any interpersonal situation as well. I want to actually talk about a concept that's in the book called the Team Values Charter, which is something that you can apply immediately in your team if you choose to, and you'll find it's got huge value. It's enormously effective, and it does build trust. And of course, I want to leave you with a special offer at the end that you could certainly take advantage of should you choose to. So that's where we're going for the next half an hour. Now, I'd have to say that the whole notion of building trust in teams is enormously complex. It sounds very simple, doesn't it? And I'm sure many of you are actually team leaders and have been grappling with this in your own way. But if you actually look at a team, there's basically two broad needs. There's task needs, or there's a task dimension, which is represented by the blue. And if we just have a look at what that's all about, of course, that's what you do. That's the services that you provide or the goods you produce. So obviously a team exists for those reasons. Ironically, that's often the easiest part of teamwork. And then you've got another dimension, which is the people dimension, which is often the harder part, which team leaders find out fairly quickly after they become team leaders. Now, we can split that up into two sections. We can talk about team needs and individual needs. So let's look at what they mean. So an individual needs, of course, is catering for the individual needs and interests and motivations in your team. Now, obviously, in terms of trust, the levels of trust between you and each individual team member will vary, and there'll be a whole lot of reasons for that, not the least of which would be that the other person just may not be a trusting person, or that you don't trust them. So there's a whole range of possibilities there. But the other part of it, of course, is when the team comes together. And this is about making sure that you give a balance to the, who contributes in the team meeting. And, you basically create a situation where you've got shared leadership, and that very much is built on trust as well. So I just wanted to share that sort of at the outset, because obviously when we're talking about trust, it's not just a simple thing of do this and do that. It becomes quite complicated when it comes to teamwork itself. And I haven't even mentioned another dimension, which of course is the trust between the team and their stakeholders. And that will vary as well, depending on what the stakeholders are, who they are, and what their attitude is towards the team. So it is complex. So what I want to do here now on this slide is just share with you what the five elements of trust are, and then what I will do is unpack each of them and explain them in a little bit more detail for you during this presentation. This comes from one of my books that I co-authored with Aubrey Warren called Conversations at Work, And let me just unpack that a little bit and give you some idea about what each of them are about. And this is based on reputable research, so it's not as if we've just kind of made this up, if you like. So we've got openness, acceptance, congruence, reliability, and competence. So what I want to do now is look at each of those very briefly in the short time we've got together. So one of the elements of trust, and these aren't necessarily in any order, and I'm not suggesting to you that this one necessarily is the most important. They are all important and they're all interrelated as well. But what we're doing for the purposes of this exercise is, chopping it up so we can actually have a look and see what they actually mean. So what does openness actually mean? Well, openness, from your point of view, is an appropriate openness in our conversations. And if we're more open, now, of course, we don't want to be a completely open book, but if we're more open, others get a sense of our self-confidence and willingness to connect with them. So if we're a bit of a closed book and play our cards close to our chest, as they say, it's hard to really get to know what others are really like. Now, I'm talking really about the team leader at the moment. So the team leader needs to be as open as they feel comfortable being, and bear in mind that extroverts and introverts will vary in terms of their openness threshold, if you like. So I would say that an example of being open is that when you've made a mistake, is that you own up to that mistake and apologise for that mistake. When you're open, it means that if you don't know the answer to a problem, then you actually explain that you don't know the answer to that. Not that that's the end of it. You may go and investigate what the answer is. So openness is being, human in the workplace, essentially. And people will tend to trust people who are open. Now, obviously, you can go too far with this and be too open with people. So as I said, it's an individual threshold issue, and you've got to work out how that is. But just experiment with this and be a little bit more open with people is often a good way to get started on the road to building higher levels of trust that are sustainable. So that's the openness part. Now, the acceptance part is actually it's the flip side of the openness coin. So you being open, but you being accepting is accepting where other people are coming from. So when people share information about themselves, they actually have chosen to take a risk, because it's quite possible if I share an opinion with you, there's a potential that you may disagree with my opinion and I might disappoint you. So therefore I don't share. But as a team leader, what we've got to do is we've got to kind of accept where people are at as much as we possibly can, as humanly as we can. We know that there's a chance of rejection or judgment. So people will judge people when they divulge something personal about themselves. So we've got to be very careful to create an environment where people can feel safe and comfortable to be open. But if they think for a moment that you're going to be judging them, and perhaps more importantly, judging them negatively, they won't take that risk, and therefore you don't get that openness and acceptance that we expect in teams. So it's two sides of the coin. Team leader, be open, and of course when team members are open or taking the risk to be open, we've got to be accepting of where they're at and not judge them. And that's easier said than done. But we certainly need to try to not be seen to be judging people and their opinions. Now, if it's a task-related issue, well, that's slightly different, because you as the team leader probably have a little bit of expertise in how the task should be done, in which case, of course, you can disagree with that, but I wouldn't be too judgmental when people are sharing information about themselves. Now, so now we move on to congruence. Now, congruence is, I suppose in plain English, what congruence means is walking the talk, or saying what you think, And so there is a level of, in communication, it's measured by the alignment between your words and what you mean. So we often do respect people who are what we might refer to as straight shooters. And we do that because we kind of know where they're coming from, and we also know that they'll follow through on that. Now, when people don't follow through on that, we get ourselves into strife. I'm just going to turn the webcam off here. I've just realized that we've got some internet issues going on, and if I'm not coming across clearly, I'll just turn it off. So that'll give us a chance to hopefully continue without being challenged by the audio. But look, if you go to the question box, if you've got issues with the audio, could you let me know, please, and just type in, unclear or breaking up or something. That would be useful for me to know. But I'll keep ploughing on because there's not much I can do at this point. But congruence is about that. It's good now. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for that. It makes me feel a bit better. I'll venture to turn on the webcam shortly. We'll just give it a little bit of time, I think. So do we talk straight, or do we couch our opinions and contributions in qualifications and hesitant phrases? So we've got to learn to be a little bit more, I guess the word might be authentic. And that's important. And so there's a balance there, of course, because we don't want to be too blunt either. Because if we're too blunt, we can certainly annoy somebody. So it's very important that we are what I might call assertive without being blunt or aggressive. So finding that balance has a lot to do with how much people will trust you. So I think, I'll have to leave you to work that out, but there's certainly more material in the book on how you might get to that. This is just an overview, obviously. The next element of trust is reliability. Now, this is a very familiar concept around trust because reliability is really about sending a message that you will do what you say you will do. So you will follow through. So if you make some promise, excuse me, if you make some promise to somebody and you follow through on that promise, then your trust levels go up in the eye of the person who you've made the promise to. Of course, the flip side's true, and how often do you see that where someone promises and doesn't deliver? So I guess the old adage of over-promising and under-delivering is extremely important here. Procrastinating or inconsistent signals or a lack of reliability will result in an erosion of trust. There's no doubt about that. So it's very important so let me give you a practical example of how this might work. If somebody, for example, says to you, or bails you up in the corridor and asks you a question, you don't need to feel as if you've got to give them an answer right there and then. You might find that you are being caught off guard or ambushed. Just say to the other person, leave it with me, I want to give it some thought, and then I'll get back to you. Now that way, of course, you're not just blurting out the first answer that you can think of. And of course, you need to get back to them, because if you don't, that will be one way that you will violate trust, because you're not being reliable. You've said that you'll get back to them and you haven't. So that becomes really important as well. Now, it is true to say that competence is an element of trust. We tend to feel a little more trust if we know that the other person knows what they're talking about, or they can do something effectively. I'm just going to turn on the webcam now, but if the audio goes a bit strange, let me know and I'll turn it off, because it takes up a bit of bandwidth. But I just wanted to personalize that a bit. Oh, I'll turn that off. It's obviously, I'm getting a message here. It's gone bad again. Righto, I've turned it off. Let's hope that we can get through this. So competence is something that's overlooked, and it's something that's important. And it's true to say that team leaders are expected to have some competence in what the task, what they're actually doing. It can make a huge difference, because obviously the flip side's true. If people don't know, then there's automatically an erosion of trust. Okay, so we all learn to trust ourselves in certain situations. If you look at ourselves, for example, I might trust myself on financial management, but I may not trust myself on strategic management. So I might seek out someone to assist me with that. So, okay, I can see we've got some issues here. Okay, is that better? Okay, I'm hoping that I'm still coming across. I'm assuming that everyone is online at this stage all over the world, and of course it's putting enormous strain on our ability to do these things. So let's see, let's hope I'm getting a message here that it's coming across a little clearer. Anyway, the team values charter. A team values charter is a powerful way to assist a team to work together towards a goal. So, you've got your corporate values, you've got your things that you've got your plaque on the wall. This is basically a process of how people are prepared to work together, all right, in a team. So essentially what you do is you can create a charter about how your team members will deal with each other, all right. So let's see how we go. It's not time consuming, and it's not time consuming, and in fact, in many respects, it can take you about 20 minutes. And so let me walk you through the process and see how we go with this. Okay. So it's based on 4 key questions, and the 4 key questions are: what's one value that's important to you when you're working in groups and teams? Now, the idea would be to ask people to come to the meeting ready to answer these questions, but I wouldn't necessarily give these questions out before the meeting. And the reason for that is it's likely that one person in the team may not have done it, and then you're in a situation where you've got to do it or wait for that person to complete it. So my suggestion is the next time you've got a team meeting, ask people to bring, obviously something to write on, and then you simply ask them these 4 questions. And what I suggest you do is that you also involve yourself in this exercise. So don't just leave it to the team members. You do it as well. So for example, in the first question, if there's one value that's important to you when working in groups and teams, I might say respect. Now, why would I say respect? Well, that's the next question. That's the third question. But the next question that you would ask is, what is your definition of that value? Now, the reason for that, of course, is that a label or a word or a value can mean different things to different people. So by getting people to actually share with you their definition of that value becomes important. So I might say something like, respect is when people are prepared to listen to others, even when they may not agree with their point of view. So that's my definition of respect. So, other people may have a different definition of respect, but that's my definition. Then I'm going to ask, well, why is that value important to you? Now, the reason for asking that, of course, is it gives you an insight into what's important to the people that you lead. I might say, for example, I like to feel that I'm respected and my opinions are valued when working with others. And that's essentially summing up why respect is important to me. Now, by doing that, we get some insight into what people think are important and why. And then the question 4 is where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to ask people what behaviours would be consistent with that value. Now, what I'm looking for, of course, is tangible evidence that people are honouring that value. So this one might be, for example, not interrupting someone else when they're speaking, in my view, would be a sign of respect. So that would be one example of a behaviour that would demonstrate respect. Okay. Now, once you have got all of that done, the next step is to actually, you start yourself and you just simply let people know the answer to those 4 questions. And then what you do is you go round the group and give everyone the same opportunity. And so you'll hear a pin drop. It's quite a powerful exercise, and people will share with you their answers to those 4 questions. All the while, you get somebody who records the values. So, for example, if you've got a team of 5 people, it may well be that you end up with 5 values. You certainly won't end up with any more than 5 because you're asking people to identify one value. You may, of course, end up with less than 5, and you might end up with 3. And in the case where 2 people have got exactly the same value, well, that's not a problem. It's great, actually. And so what I then do is, after the meeting, I might ask those 2 people who may have selected the same value to come up with a definition that they're both comfortable with. So they'd combine their definitions to come up with something that they would feel good about. And now what I do is I publicise this and I call it a team values charter. And ultimately, this is how people in the team will work with each other, and that's important. So that's the idea. And then, of course, you know, I've seen people put this on the top of their agendas. I've seen people even frame them and put them on the wall in the meeting room that they meet in. You will be surprised at how incredibly powerful it is, and I'll tell you why it's powerful. One simple reason: people don't argue with their own data. The fact that you've given everyone a chance to have a say in the values makes it so powerful. So the quid pro quo is that my value will be honoured, but in return, I need to honour the values of other people in the team. Now, if I do those things, I'm going to create another way that we can build a degree of trust in our team. So you can read more about that, obviously, in my book, and I'd encourage you to do so, obviously. Now, does anyone have any questions at this point before we launch on? The sound seems to be okay here. Okay, so I can see that we've got a few people that have, okay, yeah. All right, so let's keep going. I just want to finish up by offering you something that I think you might find very valuable. So my offer to you, because you've taken the time and trouble to be here today and to spend half an hour with me, I'd like to offer you this. I'd like to offer you a copy of my book, Winning Teams, and the value is $30, and plus postage, and you will receive, if you decide today that you'd like a copy of that, I would just simply send you an invoice, and I'd also send you a link to a course of building highly effective teams. That's an online course. It's quite a rigorous course. It's certainly got plenty in it, and it certainly talks about many of the things that we've talked about today and many others. And the value of that course would be $675, but you will get that free if you simply order one copy or more of my book, that is Winning Teams. All you've got to do to take advantage of that is just simply send me an email by the close of business today, and I will arrange that for you. All right, so that's the offer that I give you. I hope that is well received, and look forward to hearing from you. So folks, I'm going to finish up at this point. Again, I apologize about the audio. There's not much I can do about it. I mean, obviously, if it's not working very well, it's something that's out of my control. But thanks, everyone. I hope that's been useful for you, and I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up at a later date. And don't forget, I'll be sending you a copy of the slides and the recording this afternoon. So thanks everyone. See you later and goodbye.